Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the People's Champion. Host the Hut, and welcome back to the Baseball Hut. And hopefully you like this video and hit that subscribe button. I talked a lot about the Mets not trading any of their prospects really over the last 4 years. They've really hoarded them. I mean, it's the best way to describe it. They've held on to everybody. They've not moved anybody since the trade of Pete Crow Armstrong to the Cubs 4 years ago for Javi Baez. So really, the Mets have not made any major trades. And David Stearns has not made a major trade since he's been here. He's made a lot of little trades. Probably the biggest trade was the one that he made with Milwaukee a few years ago to bring in Adrian Hauser and Tyrone Taylor. That's probably the biggest trade he's made, for the most part. And, we know that he signed Juan Soto. He's done a lot of, re-signed Pete Alonso, but really he's not done a major kind of a signature move. And he did that in Milwaukee when he traded for Christian Yelich. But he hasn't made a major trade. And the Mets have not moved any of their young talent. And you're seeing this young talent playing on the Mets right now with Mauricio, Vientos, Acuna, and Brett Beatty. And those guys were here from previous regimes. Now we have guys coming up through the system that are part of his group, are starting to. Maybe a lot of them are going to be talked about next year, but there's a lot of depth here. Not a lot of elite talent, but we have a lot of talent here. A lot of guys that can play every day and need to work out their game. I found this article, and this was interesting because I've talked a lot about this, about the fact that the Mets have all these young players, and there's going to be a decision made on some of them. They're going to have to make a move to improve this team, because this team is an older team, especially with their three of their four big players in their 30s. Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso. They are in their 30s. Juan Soto, as you know, he's not in his prime yet. He's 26. He'll be entering his prime at the end of the year as a baseball player. So we have guys here. This is an older team. Edwin Diaz is in his 30s, by the way. And I would mention that he has an opt-out this year. So the Mets might be all in when we get to July 31st, and maybe Stearns pulls the trigger on a big trade. But we're going to talk about what could happen here, and this is from the SI. New York Mets could trade some of their young talent for this reason. Logic suggests trading some of the Mets' emerging young players for a more proven talent. That's why you move young players. It's to bring in players that are better and that are more proven. New York Mets are a veteran team in a lot of areas, but there's plenty of youth on the way to add to the team's existing core of players. Manager Carlos Mendoza already has a tough task juggling playing time for four young infielders: Ryan Mauricio, Mark Vientos, Brett Beatty, and Luis Angel Acuna on this year's team, and his challenge stands to get more difficult in the next 18 months. The Mets' depth and clutter is in the infield. Mets have tons of infielders that are very talented, extremely deep with the infield, and the middle infield in particular, which is good because then you can move around, you can move in the outfield and stuff like that. And we can't forget about Francisco Alvarez, who is a young player. And he is part of this core, but he's in AAA right now getting that swing back, hopefully. And hopefully he'll start hitting home runs again like he's doing now in AAA. In addition to the aforementioned quartet, 6 of the Mets' top 10 prospects, according to MLB.com, are projected to reach the majors by the end of 26 or earlier. Infielder Jeff Williams, who should have been in the majors last year, but he got hurt. He hurt his wrist. First baseman Ryan Clifford, he's not ready for AAA. And outfielder Drew Gilbert, who again he would have been in the major leagues last year as well, but he had a bad hamstring. As well as pitchers Jonah Tong, Nolan McLean, and Brandon Sproat. Now these guys are coming to the system very quickly, especially the pitching. Those pitchers are coming very quickly now to the system. That list doesn't even factor in someone like Blade Tidwell, who was a top 10 prospect in the Mets system last season that made his big league debut early in the season. The problem is that those 11 players would account for almost half of the Mets' 26-man roster, which is already pretty full of key contributors. Exactly. Assuming the Mets retain Pete Alonso, 4 everyday position spots would be locked in for the long haul with him, Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, Brandon Nimmo, and Jeff McNeil. Can't forget about Jeff McNeil. He is under control for 2026 with a team option for 27. And with none of the position players mentioned beyond being catchers, the Mets would have just 3 spots, center field, third base, and DH to use these players. Now, after the season, the designated hitter side, Starlin Marte is going to be a free agent, Jesse Winker is going to be a free agent. Things aren't much better on the pitching side, but the Mets could enter 2026 with a full rotation of Shohei Manaea, Clay Holmes, David Peterson, Kodai Senga, Frankie Montas, if the latter doesn't opt out of his deal after missing the first half of the season. Tyler McGill could also be a factor as a 6th starter, making it tough for the younger players to find job openings when they are ready. One option to solve this dilemma is a consolidation trade, where David Stearns combines 2 or 3 of his top prospects to acquire a top player at a position of need with multiple years of team control. Miami's Sandy Alcantara, who is under control through 2027, would be one such addition that fits the bill. But are the Marlins willing to trade him, knowing that his value is way down? I don't know. They're not that. It can't be that stupid. And the Marlins can't be that dumb, can they? A longer-term play could be to hang on to as many top prospects as possible, in case the Pirates decide trading Paul Skeens is a more viable roster-building strategy than simply spending money to improve the team around him. It would take a Godfather package to price Skeens out of Pittsburgh right now. He's going to get moved. I can 100% guarantee he will be traded before he hits free agency, long before, at least 2 years before he hits free agency. He'll be out of Pittsburgh. I can guarantee you that. I don't guarantee things, but that I guarantee you, because that owner's not going to spend any money. But the Mets would have a stacked offer to make if they hold their prospects until then. There are also 40-man roster concerns after the 26th season, however, which would see a lot of the team's bigger prospects, notably Williams, McLean, and Clifford, need to be added to it to avoid exposure to the Rule 5 draft. This coming winter, Gilbert is the most notable prospect that needs to be added to the roster. I thought the Mets should have called him up, in place of Jesse Winker. They didn't do that. They brought up Jarrett Young. He might be here in the second half. If they call him up, then he'll be on the 40-man roster. The Mets will also run into problems with options for the existing major leaguers, as the Yankees is already out of options. That's why he hasn't gotten sent out. Somebody team will pick him up if he gets past through waivers. While Mauricio and Acuna will each have just one left entering 2026. MLB's system is designed to prevent teams from simply hoarding young talent, and the Mets are getting close to having to decide who they really want to keep as core players going forward. Mark Vientos is on the bubble because he doesn't have any options. He's not had a good season, but he did have a big year last year. He has value. Okay, you could get a really good player for him now because his value. He's shown that he can play well in a big market, that he can play well in a big spot. The problem with the Mets' offense is because he has not performed this year, as well as Alvarez. So the Mets are kind of scuffling, trying to figure out. They would have had like 6 players that were very reliable last year. 2 of those spots are empty, without Vientos and Alvarez not there performing. But Vientos is a guy who probably has a good chance of getting moved at the deadline, more than say Acuna, who I'm getting to feel like I don't really care for his game because I don't think he can hit for power. Mauricio is very intriguing because he has that power potential, and he's a good defensive player. But Acuna has no pop. I'm surprised the Mets recalled him back. He constantly pops up. He hits he doesn't hit the ball on the ground more. He doesn't have any power, and he's kind of like double. Not even the ability to hit for doubles or triples. It's just not there. There's not even extra base ability. It's all singles, And a guy like that, he's got to hit for some kind of slug, and he doesn't at all. His on base is fine. The batting average is fine. His defense is terrific. He's a great base runner, but that part of his game is not there. It's non-existent. Brett Beatty, very inconsistent. I'm surprised that he's still here. To be honest with you. I thought he would have been long gone from the Mets. That they would have moved him. But David Stearns, he hasn't moved anybody yet. But they're gonna have to make decisions. And these players the Mets do have that are the stars of this team are older. So the Mets are going to have to figure out, you have to win. It's all about winning a World Series. Which is more important? Trading some of these younger guys or going another year trying to develop them and then losing your opportunity, losing that window to win a World Series. You know, I mean, do you go and right before the trading deadline, maybe trade some of these young players from Emmanuel Clase just to throw him out there? You know, I mean that's a big name. He certainly could help them Mets late in the game, and then in the seventh, eighth, and ninth inning, certainly. And he has many years of control under his belt. He's got 2-3 more years on the control. But that's sort of the example of players that the Mets could use. Mets could use another bat. They can talk about that. They can use a big reliever. You know. But we'll see how this all sort of transpires over the next 2 weeks. And hopefully you like this video. Thank you for watching. Of course, please subscribe. And I want to thank you for coming by, and I'll see you later.